أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So, let's inshallah. I think the surah was Surah Quraish, right? So I will do inshallah ayah by ayah, and then you can see that if there is anything you want to ask or if some mistake, inshallah, in this way you'll be able to fix that. So let's inshallah begin. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So this firstly ilafi Quraysh is actually this lam is lam of jar, and then this ilafi is majroor. As you can see that ilafi is in jar status. And the reason its tanween has been removed because ilafi was going to play the role of mudaf for Qurayshin. So this ilafi is mudaf and Qurayshin is mudaf ilay. So lam jar, ilafi was majroor. But because ilafi and Quraysh, they are connected together. And how do we know this? We have discussed in the past that if Qurayshin is in jar status and the word before Qurayshin is ilaf and ilaf is not a jar, so the only possibility left is that ilaf will become mudaf, and that's why Qurayshin is in jar status because it is mudaf ilay. So now we will say that lam is jar and ilafi Qurayshin. We will put this both things together in the bucket of majroor. Let's translate it as well. Lam mean for, ilafi mean accustomedness or familiarity, and Quraysh is a proper name here, name of the tribe. So for the accustomedness of Quraysh, as you can notice that we put off between ilaf and Quraysh. Why? Because between mudaf ilay we always put off. So for the accustomedness of Quraysh. Any question about this first ayah?
Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Alaikum salam.
Yeah, so this is a complete jumla in this ayah?
Very good question. Sister, you asked a wonderful question and you reminded me so I can explain something, inshallah, for everyone. Jazakallahu khair. So the point is, please, all of you, please pay attention. Sometimes it does happen in the Quran that we get, for example, as in this case, we only got a jar majroor fragment. And after that, ayah has ended. So now as we know that jar majroor is simply a phrase and it plays its role either in jumla ismiya and then it becomes muta'alliq bil khabar, or it plays its role in jumla fi'liya in which it becomes muta'alliq bil fi'l. Now in those situations as this one where you only get a jar majroor and nothing else is there, in those situations the grammarians they say that actually there is a hidden verb or implied verb, and then they give different opinions that what can be that implied verb, and they say that this jar majroor phrase is actually muta'alliq bil fail. Which fail? A fail which is implied here. Now obviously at the end of the day, whatever they mention in terms of implied, that is their estimation. And the reason they propose this kind of thing is because they need to explain this jar majroor, that what we're going to do with this jar majroor. And inshallah, remind me in the beginning of next session, inshallah, I will look up for you that in this situation, what are the different verbs which they have proposed, that what can be possible employed verb, and this jar majroor is muta'alliq bil that verb. But you remember this principle, that when you only get jar majroor and nothing else is there, you will say that this jar majroor is muta'alliq bil fail, and that fail is, in Arabic they use the term mahzoof. Mahzoof literally means deleted, but you can say implied. So this mahzoof you can translate as employed. So they would say that this jar majroor is muta'alliq bil fail al mahzoof, the fail which is employed.
Jazakallah khair.
Yeah. Any other question before I move on? Okay, let's inshallah do the next ayah. Ilafihim. Ilafi and him. First of all, we know that it is two words. It's ilafi and him. Now, in the past, as we all know, we have discussed a concept. Now, as you can see here as well, this ilafi is in jar status. That is point number one. Let's deal with the ilafi part first. Okay, so ilafi is in jar status, and we only know two reasons. Either there is a jar or there is a mudaf. And I have mentioned, I think in the last or the session before that, that when you cannot find any of those, as in this case, if there's nothing before ilafi, then it is the case 99.9% of time, it would be the case of sifa or badal. I have discussed last time as well that sifa and badal are same thing, that two things matching in all the four properties. The only difference is sifa is really a description or adjective of the previous thing. But in the case of badal, it just replaces the previous word, it does not describe it. So same is the case here. In this case, ilafi, this second ilafi is actually badal for the first ilafi. And that is why it is in jar status. Why? As you can see, this ilafi in jar status. So this was the reason that this ilafi is also in jar status. So this much is that this second ilafi is badal. Okay, now him is attached with it. Okay, and we know that when obviously when we're calling this ilafi the badal of the first ilafi, and the first ilafi was a ism, so this ilafi is also ism, right? Now ilafi and him, ism and attached pronoun are coming together. It is always the case of mudaf mudaf ilay. So now instead of saying that ilafi is the badal for the previous ilafi, you will say ilafi him is the badal. But that is not the end of story. When you say rihlata, and this is something coming for the first time, so I want all of you to please be extra attentive. That is the new point in this surah. So rihlata, first of all, it is a ism. How do we know this? We know because of ta marbuta, because we know that this round ta is a sign of ism. So that is something for sure that it's a ism. Now, what status is it? It is in nasab status. Why? Because of this fatha. We know it is in nasab status. And we know that ism in nasab status, it performs the role of maf'ul. This much we know. Now, but the point to be worried is that we have not got any fail. So if we call this one maf'ul, then this maf'ul is regarding which fail? Because there's no fail in the entire, in any of the two verses, neither in the first one nor in the second one. Because if there was a fail, because sometime it could happen that maf'ul can become before the fail. That is true. But in this case, we have no fail at all, because ash-shitai, whatever ash-shitai is, it is a ism, and whatever saifi is, it's a ism. So ash-shitai and as-saifi, both of them are ism. We do not have any fail. Now please pay attention. As we have discussed as a principle, that ism in nasab status performs the role of maf'ul. That much is done deal. There's no change in this principle. But the thing we're learning as a new point today is that as fail can have a maf'ul, in the same way, there's another thing. In Arabic, we call that thing as masdar. Masdar. Dal and ra. Masdar. The English word for masdar is verbal noun. and being more specific. For example, eat. Eat is a verb. At is a verb. But the word eating, this word eating is the example of verbal noun. Because obviously eating is a verb in this sense, just in this sense, that it is indicating an action. But it is not just verb. Why? Because it does not have the time element. So understand this point. Inshallah, it's a very simple point, inshallah. That eating, for example, sleeping, drinking, eating, all of those words which in English language we use ing. Okay, those words, they are called verbal nouns. They are verb just in the sense that they are indicating an action. And they are noun in the sense because nouns are the one which do not have element of time. Because element of time is only the property of verb. So it is basically a mixture of this verb and noun. Verb in the sense it indicates an action, and noun in the sense it does not have the time element attached to it. So this thing is called masdar, right? Now you may be thinking that how would I know that if this thing is masdar? At least you know one thing, that this thing is a ism, right? Now, inshallah, be with me from the next week. We are starting the discussion of which is called morphology, that how different words are made. So inshallah, at that time, the concept of identifying the masdar, or inshallah, even more details of the masdar, they will be clear to you inshallah in the coming week. For now, just remember this principle, that as verb can have maf'ul, in the same way, masdar can have maf'ul. That is one point. Second point is, if you get an ism in nasab status, but you do not have any fail, then rest assured that there is a masdar here, and this ism in nasab status is maf'ul for that masdar. So now, which means you can say the result of this discussion is that this rihlata is maf'ul for who? For ilafi. Okay. So this rihlata will be called, I just put it here, maf'ul. Maf'ul for who? For ilafi. Why? Because ilafi is a ism, but this ism is masdar. Accustomedness, or obviously in a very rough sense, you can say accustoming, but it's not a word accustoming. So accustomedness, I use the word, but it is giving the same meaning of ing. Okay. Now, rehlata will become the maf'ul for who? For this ilafi. That is one point. Second point is, after rehlata, you got a word ashita'i, and it is in jar status. And this is in jar status. Why? Because it is mudaf ilayh. For who? For rehlata. And then this vav is just connecting this word with the previous word. So this vav is ataf. And then this as-sayfi, you remember I said last time, you don't need to say that ash-shitai is mudaf ilay number one and as-sayfi. No, you simply say that as-sayfi is ma'atuf ala ash-shitai. This is the word which you can say the term you'll use for as-sayfi. That it is ma'atuf. This was ain. Okay. So it is ma'atuf ala ash-shitai. It is connected with ash-shitai, which means it will perform the same role as ash-shitai. Now let's translate the whole thing. Ilafihim, their accustomedness. Rehlat ash-shitai was sayf. Rehla in this case is coming in a metaphorical sense, in the meaning of journey. Journey, okay? So their accustomedness of the of journey of ash-shitai mean winter and as-sayfi mean summer. Their accustomedness of the winter and summer. So one more time, their accustomedness of winter and summer. Now you can ask, just one last point. So first I said that this ilafi is the badal for the previous one, but you notice that everything is linked with this ilafi. So you will call this whole sentence. Now you can call it sentence. This whole sentence is the badal for this first ilafi. Why? Because everything in this sentence is connected to each other. Now any of your questions? Okay, so let's inshallah move on to the next ayah. So fal ya'budu, this fa, I think I mentioned this word last time as well, istinaf. Istinaf mean resumption. Resumption. Now, so what we are learning is that there's a fa of ataf and there's a fa of istinaf. Now a question, a legitimate question will come in your mind. Then how would I know that if this fa is fa of ataf or fa of istinaf? Inshallah, this is a topic on its own. Inshallah, it will come on its time. That we will discuss that. For example, wow. Wow sometimes come as ataf and sometimes it plays other roles as well. So those words, this like fa and wow, which perform multiple roles. Inshallah, we'll discuss them in that one lesson. And then inshallah, at that time, it will become clear to you. For now, istinaf mean resumption, which means that a subject was started and then a break came and now subject is resumed again. Li'ilafi Quraish, after that first ayah, a sifa or badal for the ilaf was introduced and then again subject is continuing. So, فَلْيَعْبُدُوا, please pay attention. This ya'budu, it is basically the verb is abada, abada, ya'budu, ya'budu, mudare, and u'bud. U'bud is the amr form. So from ya'budu, if you keep moving and this wow is telling you, that it is number 3 in the chart, but its noon has been removed, right? Now, why the noon is removed? If you recall, you remember we discussed in our level 1 course that mudare has 3 forms. Normal mudare, we call it marfu. Mudare mansoob and mudare majzoom. And what is it? Mudare mansoob and majzoom means that those words of the mudare chart which have noon, their noon is removed, right? And those words of the chart which do not have noon, for example, as this one yabudu has the first one in the mudare chart, it has no noon. So those words which do not have noon, their dhamma is replaced. When you make them mansoob, dhamma becomes fatha. And when you make them majzoom, dhamma becomes sukoon. So this is the concept of mansoob and majzoom. Now this ya'budu, it was actually ya'buduna. It has become ya'budu. Why? And we have discussed this as well, that mudare will not become mansoob and majzoom until there is something which comes before mudare. And inshallah, today after this lesson, you can go and check that list, that what is the list of words which make mudare mansoob and majzoom. In that list, you will find one item as wal, and sometimes it comes as fal, and sometimes simply li. So there are 3 forms of the same word. Same entry number, the same entry that those words in the list of those words which make mudare majzoom, you'll find one entry as wal falli. It is actually just lam. Sometimes waw is attached with the lam and sometimes fa is attached with the lam, and sometimes nothing is attached with the lam. So remember, actual word is only lam. Okay, waw or fa are just attached to it. Clear? So because of this fal, which is those words which make mudare majzoom. Mudare has become majzoom. Okay, and this gives the meaning of should. Fal yabudu, they should worship. Okay, Rabba. If you say to someone, worship what? Rabba. You can see that Rabba is coming in. So this yabudu was mudare, and Rabba is the maf'ul. And if you notice, after Rabba, someone's mic is really disturbing. So I was saying that after the Rabba, you got, if you notice that after this Rabba, you got this Hazal Bayt. And we all know that this Hazal Bayt is what? Hazal Bayt is a ism ishara and musharun ilay, in which Haza is ismul ishara and al Bayti is musharun ilay. That is one thing. Second thing is, look at the translation. فَلْيَعْبُدُوا, so they should worship Rabba, master, Hazal Bayt, of this house. You notice the point? Master of this house. So we learned one thing, that this Ismun Ishara and Musharun Ilay is coming after of. And what comes after of, it plays the role of Mudaf Ilay, which means that Rabba was Mudaf. So Rabba Hazal Bayt is actually, it is still maf'ul, but Rabba Haza al Bayti, all of them are connected together. How? Rabba as mudaf and Hazal Bayt as mudaf ilay, and inside of Hazal Bayt, Haza ismul ishara, al Bayti musharun ilay. So let them worship master of this house. Any question? Walaikum assalam.
I just, can you please explain the top bit, wow, lam and halam, and what's the other one?
The wal, it's the
yeah,
wal, fal, and simple lam.
simple lam.
Okay. So inshallah, sister, if you go back, we have a small file, which is the file to memorize things. You remember, sister?
Yes.
In that file, you'll find toward in module 5. In module 5 of the memorization bank, you'll find that the list of words which make mudare mansoob and list of words which make mudare majzoom. In that one, you'll find one entry as wal falli. This is that word or that entry which make mudare majzoom.
Okay, brother, I will have a look.
Brother, we learned lam the surah feel lam yaj'al, so that lam also is
excellent.
Isn't it? So that should also come in that group, right?
Excellent. Yes, sister. And inshallah, you'll find that in that same segment, inshallah.
Yeah.
Because there's a list of words, and one entry is wal falli, and there's lam and couple of other entries as well.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam, Amir bhai.
Just a quick question regarding this last two words, Hazal Bayt. So in the translation, should we not be saying the house rather than this house? Because it's al. I'm just confused a bit there.
I mean, by sometime, when we translate things, obviously, I totally agree with you that it is not reflecting actually what the text is saying, but you can see the point that the actual thing is being said, that so they should worship the master of this house. So we have put that the in front of here. Amir bhai, clear?
Yes, it's exactly. Thank you.
Okay, so inshallah, let's do the last ayah. So allazi, we all know that allazi is ism mawsool. And secondly, we also know that when this allazi or any of ism mawsool comes, it plays the role of describing something that has already came in the text. In this case, Rabba is being described. Okay, so allazi ism mawsool, at'ama and whom. Okay, at'ama and whom. Please, I mentioned this point last time as well, and listen again. I said that the original letters in this case are ta, ain, and mim. Ta, ain, and mim. If before the original letters you see this thing as coming here, it gives the meaning that action is happening, or you can say that the action is being done on someone else. So at'ama means to feed someone. Okay, to feed someone, and it is a fail madi, so fed. Okay, fed someone, he fed someone. Okay, now at'ama, like I said, is fail madi, and it is number 1 in the madi chart. Now, like I said about the masdar, inshallah all of this construction business will be discussed bi'iznillahi ta'ala in this section, which inshallah will be starting from next week, in which we will discuss the construction of words. But this point, inshallah, keep always in mind. If you see a fail madi, and instead of its normal 3 letters, you see a hamza with the fatha in the start, it is a sign that something is being done to someone else. So not feeding yourself, to feed someone else. Okay, so, and obviously whom will be the maf'ul. So at'ama is madi, fail madi, and whom is the maf'ul. Why? Because we know that whenever attached pronoun comes with the fail, attached pronoun always becomes maf'ul. So at'ama, whom, feeding them, min ju'in. Min is jar and ju'in is majroor. Jar and majroor will play the role of muta'alliq. Muta'alliq bil who? Muta'alliq bil fail. Which fail? At'ama. And then we have this vow. Inshallah, I'll explain after the vow in a minute. Let's translate the first bit. Allazi, the one who, at'ama, fed. Now remember this point, because I have, when you translate this construction, that when you have ism mawsool, please pay attention. When you have ism mawsool, and then the sila of ism mawsool is coming as a verb. Because when you translate the mawsool part, you have already mentioned the subject. So you don't need to mention subject again. So you don't need to say that the one who, he fed them. You simply say the one who fed them. Why? Because you have already translated when you translate the mawsool part. So inshallah, remember this point. Let me say one more time. When you have ism mawsool and the sila of ism mawsool is coming as a verb, and when you're translating that verb, you don't need to translate the subject of that verb. Why? Because you have already said allazi, and that will serve as a subject. So at'amahum min ju'in is a complete jumla, and this complete jumla is in the role of sila, right? So allazi, the one who, at'amahum, fed them, min, from, ju'in. Ju mean hunger. So at'ama was madi, whom was maf'ul, min ju'in is the muta'alliq, and this complete jumla is the sila for allazi. And then waw is the ataf part, amana and whom. Amana and whom. Again, amana is madi, fail madi, and whom is the attached pronoun. It will perform the role of maf'ul, and this min and khawfin, jar majroor, it will play the role of muta'alliq. Muta'alliq bil who? Muta'alliq bil amana. Waw and amana. Amana means to give someone security. It is same thing. Amana. Hamza is in the start. Amana. Hamza is in the start. Amana. He gave them. Whom mean them. Min khawfin. Khawf mean fear. So let's translate the whole bit. And gave them security in fear or from fear. And gave them security from fear. Let's translate the whole thing. Now, please, last point. This vow is connecting this sentence with this sentence. So both sentences together will become the sila. So sila will be this one and this one together. Both of them together will become the sila. Allazi sammosul, and both sentences together will be called sila. Let's translate them both together. The one who fed them in hunger and gave them security in fear. And this whole jumlatul mawsula is the description for Rabba. That who is this Rabba? Who is this Rabb? This Rabb is the one who fed them in hunger and gave them security in fear. So this will serve the role of description for Rabba. And now, inshallah, you can ask me if you have any question.